So just to have as a check-in for our session today in our action learning, which is a time where we have the opportunity to learn a little bit more about each other's project, but at the same time to have certain reflection. I know Sylvia was coming, I think she, okay. Also to have an opportunity to reflect. I'm gonna open with our check-in question for today's session. It's gonna be in our Mentimeter. And I will be sharing with you so we can share a little bit more about what is actually related to this question. So what is the most meaningful word or phrase that describes what is the most important to you at this moment? And then Anna, can you share the link in our chat? In a way everybody can connect with this question. Qual é a palavra mais significativa ou frase que descreve o que é mais importante para você? ¿Cuál es la palabra o la frase que más significativa que describes o que es más importante para usted? Community of Inspirational Change Makers. If you feel comfortable to write in Spanish or in Portuguese also, it's okay as well. Feel comfortable to write in the language you feel the most comfortable. E podemos nos fortalecer como ecossistema de impacto.
We can become stronger as an ecosystem of impact.
Consistency and persistence. Amor por la vida toda. That's beautiful. Hola, Lina. Sea bienvenida.
Hola,
We
hola.
are good to see you here also. We are just starting our check-in. I think Anna is posting in the chat the link for the Mentimeter and adding a couple of...
Okay. Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Pasión. Amor por todas las formas de vida, sembrando la nueva semilla del mañana. Thank you for translating as well. Love for all forms of life. Planting seeds of tomorrow. Sharing peace. Thank you for sharing a couple of those thoughts. We're still gonna keep on in here. So Lina, feel comfortable about bringing and coming and adding your words. Robert, would you like to add anything before we start and begin our session?
Not really. Just to say thanks for coming along. I'm looking forward to hearing about what Helen and Ceci and Adrian have been up to. There's been some very inspirational presentations over the last few weeks, and I'm looking forward to this final suite of presentations.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So starting today's session with the presentations, I think it's just as a reminder, very fast, we're gonna have 3 organizations today, which is a big honor to have all of them today. Just as a reminder, very fast, every presentation will take 10 minutes of presentation so we can learn a little bit more about the beautiful stories and the content of each project. 5 minutes words of acknowledgement from our cohort, the community who's here today. Also making some questions and answer from the participants, depending on the time that we have, but we're gonna consider the most that we can be gifted by the awareness and collective wisdom that we have through this meeting. And then after we have at the end 10 minutes of group coaching, where actually we're going to gift the organization with powerful awareness increasing questions You don't need to answer those questions at this moment, but if you feel like it's important to be answered, you're more than welcome. All those information is also going to be recorded in our Miro board with all the community, and then I'll send and share the link in a few minutes in our chat. And today we're going to start with the first presentation, which will be, is it okay for you, Ceci, to start with the organization with Earth Regenerators? And then right after, we're going to invite Adrian and also the community conservation video from Terry. And after the break, we're going to have Helen, your presentation of One Pencil. And then we can have the opportunity to have everybody's and all the organizations be presented by the end of our meeting today. Is it okay for you, Ceci, to start? And then right after, we're going to have Adrian. I don't know if Adrian's here.
Yeah, he just dropped off.
I think he dropped off. So Adrian right after. Sylvia is coming. And then after Helen. Is it okay for you, Helen, to be the third presentation? I'm not sure if I'm frozen. Maybe I am frozen.
No, you're not frozen. I think Helen froze.
Yeah. Betsy, would you like to share any screen? Yes. Hola, Silvia.
Hola,
Sí, ya lo voy a compartir.
Okay.
Ceci is going to chair her board.
Yes.
¿Se ve bien?
Todo bien. Perfecto.
Do you see my screen? Perfect. Well, I want to share with you. I'm not going to talk exactly about Earth Regenerators, but about the territorial foundation we're working on. Sorry, but now it seems that it's got blocked, but it seems that it's working now. Just a second. I want to share with you about an organization that we are about to create here in Barichara, which doesn't have an official name, but is already working since already some time. And it's called Territorial Foundation in Barichara in Colombia. Here you can see the landscape of our town, which is a dry forest, tropical forest. It is an aerial view of Barichara. This is the territory, that's the location of Barichara on the Andes. Barichara is on the western branch of the Andes and the north west. As all may have heard, Colombia has been in war for many years. We have a long period of war behind, approximately some 40 years, but fortunately we have been consolidating peace process. We have inherited peace out of that process, and we want to sustain that process. We feel obliged to guarantee that peace that has been forged in Colombia. Our focus is essentially on regeneration. What we have done, we started to take various projects that were already working on the field, and we create a kind of net that put them all together. We focus on four main subjects: on environmental regeneration, because we have a long history of abuse, planting tobacco and cattle grow. So with that past, we felt the need to work on environmental regeneration. But that also is linked to economic regeneration. We are looking for manners, of sustainable manners, to offer services, gifts, and works and products that the community is able to produce or transform, produce that come from the orchards, to start to make a stronger a net of exchange locally. In the field of social cultural exchange, we also want to strengthen sources of employment through nets of work with the people on the field here who want to work for the prosperity in the territory. We also work in the inspirational field, in the spiritual sense. We sustain relations that make possible a better future. We work a lot on personal healing and also collective healing. We also work a lot on that note. We identify commons, we recognize the values that we have in our community, and we start to move those resources, personal, financial, human, natural, of all kinds. We make a wide sense of resources. These are some of the initiatives that we have, like Bioparque Moncora, which is its regeneration plot in Barichara, where Joe is working, Agua Santa, where Maritza, the translator, is working. And we also have the Ecoversity of Barichara, which is an educational project. We have a common house. It's a project where we all bring products to transform and reinforce local economy. We also have Monte Chico. We have the reserve called Totumo. We also work on reforestation. And we are working in a new plot, which is called Origen del Agua, Origin of Water. And the aim is to restore that degraded field. We are now going to talk about governance of our organization. We are still defining the ways in which we are going to organize ourselves. It's a challenge. We want to be a participative model. We want to focus on the territory, not in projects alone. And we identified like subjects. We call that the 5 E's in our territory: the ecosystemic focus, the spiritual, the economic, the educational, and the ethic focus. Those are the fields on which we want to work in terms of regeneration, because for us, regeneration is obviously not only environmental, because we consider that if there is no regeneration at personal basis, that sometimes are painful and difficult, that include recognizing our shadows and our weakness. If we don't acknowledge these shadows in ourselves, we believe it is not possible to work in the collective regeneration. We have this notion of weaving relations on the territory that starts with the relation that each person has with each one, and afterwards among individuals and organizations, and of course, relations with the environment. Those are the 3 levels of relations that we cultivate. And of course, empathy and trust have been very important concepts that we have had at core of our work, because we have seen that when there is no trust and empathy, when resources come, it's difficult to solve crisis. How do we define territory? For us, it's in the short term, just weaving relations with the organizations. On the midterm, we focus that especially in regeneration of water, of basins, and in the long term, we envision a huge regeneration project of the geographical territory to face climate crisis. Those are the type of regenerations that have to take place to be able to talk about regeneration in our territory. We are creating a prototype of bioregions. Barichara is the first prototype of a region, and that we are building up with Earth Regenerations, which are working very actively now to create this prototype. We also are working in the Ecoversity, which is no other but the center of apprenticeship of regenerative education that will be able to be replicated in other bioregions. In the management of resources, we talk about activation of local resources, and we're talking about, in that sense, about gifts, commons, cultural, and knowledge that is present in the territory. And the other source of work that we have is working in groups of separated through subjects. And these groups work with organizations both at local and international level. This is the weaving of all resources of equities that we have in this bioregion. We have financial resources. We have infrastructure at service of our work. We combine private and public spheres to work. We work with commons, natural commons, and with cultural commons. We interweave individual and collective knowledge as well. Thank you, and you are most welcome to Barichara. Please come and know this very beautiful place in the world. You are all welcome.
Muchas gracias, Ceci, Tania. Maravillosa presentación. Me encanta y me gustaría muchísimo de estar con Mila cuando ella estuviste.
Venga, venga.
I just would love to be with Mila there, that had the chance to. That's my project in 2023.
So let's do now. We have our question round. We're gonna have 5 minutes for people who would like to make any questions for our project and our partners from Earth Regenerators in all this network, which is not just a couple of organizations, but a big red network that we are saying, and that they're considering in their project itself. So if you would like to make a question and also an appreciation at this moment, you can just raise your hand or open up your microphone. And then at this moment, Ceci and Tania, you would hear for the first moment, don't need to answer yet, and then take that as a gift. And if we have time available, you can take the times and share with us a couple of your insights out of the questions that will come. Okay, Robert?
Yeah, I'm just curious, Ceci, what's the biggest challenge that you're currently facing at the moment? What's your community's learning edge?
Pues en este momento, como nuestra.
At this very moment, our vision is at long term, and for us, ensuring to have the funding for all these projects that we have, to find those resources to make sustainable those projects. We have lots of passion. We want to work. We have the wish and the willing. We are willing to work on this territory, but we are just working to ensure to have that funding to maintain this effort in the time.
Mm. Yeah. So it's relationships.
Tanya wants to add.
Yeah, please.
Tanya wants to add something.
Please, Tanya.
Ok. Pienso que otro gran
I
desafío.
think that another challenge that we have, Robert, is something that I have seen. I'm Mexican and I have been living here for 1.5 years, and I have noted that we have this huge barrier among people who are born in this territory, and they define themselves as patiamarillos, and the people who come from outside and have adopted this territory, not only from Colombia, from other points of the world. And this tension between the people who are originated from this area and the ones who came and arrived here. And this tension is important to solve, because otherwise we are not going to be able to manage anything. In this territory, we have had lots of conflicts, and trust has been seriously challenged. I'm Colombian, I'm not from Barichara, but I perceive that people from this area look at us sometimes as somebody who is going to threaten them. So until people in this area also visualize what we are doing, and we are all one single community, we will be able to work together. That's a huge challenge to make this merging between the two communities.
Yeah. The impact of colonialism, it's very widespread. And so now my question is, if flip them on its head, what are the most innovative things that you're doing in both of those spaces? Like, what's the most innovative things you're doing that's solving the resource problem, as well as building relationships between the Indigenous owners of the land and the visitors?
Hay algo muy emocionante que pues
something which is very emotional for us, is very interesting for us, because since we are working actively, and we have seen in the syntropic agriculture exactly the process that we have developed through this project, and it's the opening of 2 plots of land where we work together. We think that exactly the opportunity to go on the field together is bringing that bridge. Of course, we want to produce food, we want to regenerate basins, but we want also to regenerate relations, and that's what we are regenerating through that work. Because at the beginning, the farmers in this area were very critical about the syntropic agriculture, what these people want to teach us, but we just open up the field, and months have gone by, and we see that the people are so enthusiastic that they apply the techniques they have learned with us in their own plots of land. There are other projects, and another thing which is very beautiful and generates also this local economy, not the resources from outside, and it's the common shop we have, La Tienda Común. This place made us realize that one of the actives, the most important one we have, is trust, because we invite people to bring whatever they can bring to that shop, handwork, products, and we put that in that shop, but each person also plays the money for the things they want to take from those products, and without having an intermediary seller, if you want. It's just a social exercise to strengthen the relations and to see how people relate with each other in that way. We also think that passion is a big asset that we have. And we also trust that we are going to be able to build trust through it. And we see people that coming here also fell in love with that, and you are invited to fall in love with us.
Beautiful.
Marcelo, would you like, thank you, Ceci Antonia, because the energy just comes along like, then yeah, just Sebas, can you start the 10 minutes of the questions, or would you like to still with the acknowledgement part? Because we still have like, now we have started our 10 minutes, the 10 minutes for the last round. Would you like to make your question, and then we can already have some time, people can write the message and the content of the questions to share as a group coaching.
Eu queria apreciar o...
Yeah, I'd like to show appreciation for your work, Ceci and Tanya. It has this quality of the relationships and the support network. I thought the image was very beautiful, the image of the threads, and you in a circle connecting the threads to each other. That's a very strong image. And when you talked about the fact that many times it's hard to keep trust alive and well without breaking that trust. So the way in which you're dealing with the financial resources, so the giving and the taking of the financial resources, it's proof that you're maintaining this network, the support network, in a very beautiful way. So I'd like to show you appreciation for that which you are building, you, Ceci and Tanya, and may we soon be there in person so that we can watch all of that and contribute.
Thank you, Marcelo. So at this time, we're going to start. Hold on, Ceci and Tanya. Now I invite everyone who's in this call for our group coaching time, where you can have the opportunity to write it down, like ask powerful awareness, increasing questions that can support them to go to a deeper level of reflection, and also to have this moment that we can gift them with good opportunities for reflection and future dialogues that they can have with themselves and their organization. So we're going to have a couple of minutes of silence, so you can have the time to write it down. You can either write in the chat, or you can share, open your microphone and share with them the question that you would like to give them.
Acho que eu gostaria de perguntar, sem escrever. Acho que tem a ver...
I'd like to ask without writing. I think it has to do with trust. The question would be, how can you boost new levels of trust, promote new levels of trust in addition to the territory itself? Because in general, we think about the territory as a space of trust, but maybe this trust goes beyond the territory and the region. So how to express this level of trust beyond the territory that was created? So that would be the question.
I'm going to read a question that Robert has written in the chat. So this way you can have that translated into Spanish. What is the most important thing you are learning about organizing yourselves to collaborate? Hi, Gail. Welcome. Good that you're here. Olá, Felipe. Seja bem-vindo.
Hi, Felipe. Welcome.
Yeah, a suggestion to everybody. If you can think of a question or two, please pop it in the chat. I know that when we've gone through this process, for those who have done the presentation, taking away the questions to contemplate has been one of the most meaningful aspects of this. So if everybody could pop a question in the chat in relation to what Ceci and Tanya have actually spoken to us about, that'd be lovely.
Okay, I'm gonna read the second question that Robert has made. So, how are you cultivating trust at each level between individuals and groups? From Lena, ¿cómo manejar iniciativas que pueden parecer competitivas en una bioregión que quiere construirse integralmente? From Marli. Gostei muito do
I
vínculo
really
com a
enjoyed the connection with the syntropic agriculture. I'd like to ask how you treat this topic and other topics and how to use all of that from the bottom up. This was Marley's question.
From Marcelo. Yes, Ceci? What is the most inspirational competitive behavior that could bring a healthier community? From Helen. How do you communicate and collaborate when you have setbacks on reaching a goal? From Lina, ¿el centro de aprendizaje incluye también educación formal o solo informal? From Silvia, felicidades por el proyecto. Mi pregunta es si el trabajo de redes y de autoestima o bienestar se trabaja con algunos actores clave de las comunidades o a qué nivel. What is the most important principle that you are applying? And from Gail, could someone, yes, Gail, I'll do that. Translate all the questions being read in Spanish into English. Yes, please.
Sorry, Gail. If you need, if
Those questions are kind of gifts. It's
is
a way of coaching round. In a way, you can get those questions, and after we're gonna put it everything for you, in different languages. Yes, Gail, we are putting the translators. I think by the time I'm reading, they're translating into your language. That's why I'm reading all. Okay, but after we're gonna prepare the document so they can have all that listed, translated, and written, typed. Thank you so much.
I just wasn't hearing the I heard the Portuguese translation, but I didn't hear the Spanish.
Oh,
Yeah.
sorry,
as you
Gail.
were- yeah.
Sorry, Gail. I was translating into Spanish and I missed 2 or 3. Sorry.
Oh, okay. Thanks.
I will do it for you.
Okay, thank you.
¿cómo planean o cómo se comunican con las regiones vecinas, ya que de alguna manera hay impactos hacia y desde estas otras regiones?
How do you communicate with other regions which are close to you, because there are impacts that also
Portuguese
affect
question
those
by Marcelo.
regions?
How to inspire a community when individual needs are so dispersed or scattered?
Ceci, Antonia, final words? Don't need to
The
answer those questions because those are gifts.
Center of Apprenticeship is formal or only informal? That's another question that was made.
Would you like to give your final words?
Thank you very much. Me agobié un poco pensando que había que responderlas.
I was a little bit worried of not being able to answer all questions, but now I understand that it's food for thought, and we are going to reflect on those issues. Perhaps some of them are new subjects for us or themes for us to reflect upon. And thank you for sharing your thoughts with us.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's exactly it, Ceci. I mean, many people have taken these questions back to their community, and it's led to wonderful insights. And I'm kind of watching Tana and you lean over and read the questions, and already I can see the big grins coming on your face. So you need to take the questions and get the same grins from your people.
Thank you, but please stay with us. Ahora vamos a tener otras presentaciones, entonces va a ser
So
mucho
please stay with us, and we are going to have other presentations so that you are able to hear other projects and also make it possible to give them with your appreciations and questions.
For the wonderful work and job, and let's see if we can go and make it for Barichara. The invitation is to everyone, so maybe we can see each other in person next year. At this moment, we're going to start and we're going to invite Adrian. Are you here?
Yeah, I am. I'm here.
Okay.
Sorry for the connection problems. I had some connection problems.
Okay, we're going to start first of all with the presentation that Terry has sent us. There's a video recording, and right after she finishes, we're going to have your presentation to all of us.
Okay.
Is that okay? Okay.
Sounds
Thank you. Robert, can you help me with the presentation? Just making sure, because my time sometimes gets.
Okay, so I'll play it, and just as everybody's watching, if you think of questions for Terry, please jot them in the chat, because I mean Adrian will catch them because he's part of community conservation. But Terry, when I spoke to her on Zoom maybe 2 weeks ago, 2-3 weeks ago, she's been traveling through Southwest Asia, and she's been having a pretty tough time of it. And so any messages of encouragement or well wishes, but also questions for her and her community, I think she'd really appreciate it. So we'd like to capture those and send them to her, because she spent, she couldn't make it. She wanted to come to this session, but she couldn't make it. So she recorded, she made this recording for us, which is kind of lovely, really. I'll just find it.
Hi everyone. Once again, I'm not able to be there in person since I've been in Asia since August, and it's usually about 2 in the morning when you have your meetings. So I'm sorry I haven't been able to be there. I did want to try and make a presentation here that describes, like the other groups have made, even though I can't be there in person, and looking at the outline for what we were going to talk about in these presentations. I think, you know, for an introduction, our heart's desire is to have communities be the foundation, the first block of any conservation project that happens anywhere, to give local communities the opportunities to participate, to be a part of whatever conservation is going on. And we need conservation everywhere over the entire landscape, whether it's urban conservation or rural conservation or national park conservation, right? Communities and people should have the opportunity to be involved. We want people who live there who are closest to the resources. That doesn't mean everyone will be involved, but our heart's desire is that anyone in a community has an opportunity to participate in biodiversity conservation and to learn and to understand more about the biodiversity in their area. So an engaging story about our project or context, I think, is, and I haven't started out by making that sound very engaging, but I think it's understanding the heterogeneity of communities and the different ways that they come to community conservation and the different values that not only the communities bring, but individuals within the community. And just how every community is unique, even though the overall process of engagement or supporting them may be very similar. So in Cameroon, for example, when I was there, and some of you are familiar with Adrian, who's participated in the participatory video, so you may have seen some information about one of the sites, the Baka site. But what's interesting there is in one place we have a community leader saying, please come and help us. We want to create community forestry in our area to protect chimpanzees, because we are seeing and we are hearing that they are farther and farther away from our community all the time. They used to come right close to us in the forest, up to our village, and now we don't hear them. And they know, the community leader knows there's a forest that he would like to protect where he knows the chimpanzees are, and he wants help figuring out, you know, how can we protect this area? How can we get tenure over that forest? How can we turn it into a community forestry site when the government is not necessarily doing much to support them in that area? So we can play, and our partner, CBBM, the local NGO who's our partner, can play a role in helping them get tenure over that land and then begin to management and understand and monitor, you know, understand how many chimps there are, what the landscape for the chimpanzee looks like, who they're, what areas they're connected to outside of this forest, and how to try and conserve and make a place for the chimpanzee and the community, because they also want to keep Nigerians out of that forest, who they come and have livestock and burn the forest, for grazing. So understanding that dynamic. So it's kind of a complicated place, and we're not sure at this point, how does the community feel? We have a community leader who wants to do it. How does the community feel? What are their values? What are their investments or assumptions about this project? And then in another area with the Baka Pygmy, where Adrian has been working, they already have tenure over the forest. They're a very famous community forestry site. There have been many articles written about them, a lot of news stories. But they came to our partner CBBM in a workshop that we led, and they said, hey, we need help actually conserving wildlife. Like, we now have tenure over the forest, but it's not a very big forest, and we're using it as if we still had all the land we could possibly want, and we need to figure out how to sustainably manage the wildlife. How much can we snare? How much wildlife can we sustainably take? How can we adapt our lifestyle to the current situation? And so that's sort of a story of success, and yet you're always having to change and improve and figure out management strategies over land, whether you're a community or a national park person. So helping them adapt and manage what they already have is what's happening in their context. And again, and some of them, to some extent, it's the community leaders who approached us, and we have to figure out where's the rest of the community at, what values, what stake are they bringing to this? How do they feel about it? How can we bring the whole community along and make sure everyone's on somewhat the same page to do that? And so that's, again, just remembering that these communities are heterogeneous, and we're not saying that, all the people in the community want to protect biodiversity or that they all want to participate, but that we want to give people the opportunity to do it in the way, to the extent and in the way that they want to do it. And as a community, help them have a process of them figuring out where do they want to go, where do they want their community to be in 10 or 20 years or 50 years when it comes to biodiversity in the forest. I would say in terms of the division, or the biggest thing that we are striving to change is, we know communities want to do this. We know there are people in every community who want to participate in biodiversity conservation. But the biggest thing we want to change is to get the donors and all the other NGOs to really recognize how much communities want to be the movers and the shakers when it comes to the actual conservation. They don't just want to be recipients of awareness activities or of livelihood activities because they don't have access. We want the people to realize that the first question you should be asking when you hear community conservation is, what can we do to support the community to conserve biodiversity? What technical knowledge do they need? What governance process may need supporting? What examples do they need to see from the outside to help them make decisions? And so that's the biggest thing I think we're striving to change, is just to really get people to understand what community conservation can be and how powerful it can really be in terms of biodiversity conservation. And then from biodiversity conservation flows livelihoods, right? Flows all these things that allow us to live on this earth. But without conservation of biodiversity in our environment, we don't have livelihoods. We don't have a healthy environment in which we have good, clean air to breathe, right, and water to drink. And so that's sort of the thing we're striving to really change on a global, national, and local level in so many places. And then the main, our main understanding, current assumptions, big questions are, what is the main way to get our message across, right? Are we making incorrect assumptions about what other people are thinking or doing, right? How do we actually make this change happen? How do we get more support, more funding going not just to communities, but to communities to conserve biodiversity, right? Having it go directly into that core foundation of conserving our environment. So my final message is just that, bringing groups of people together is really important, and not just for us to think about process in communities, but for community conservation to think about this process with all of our partners. How do we get people to come to sort of the same basic understanding of what community conservation is and how we can move forward together and support local people? I think one of the, underlying a lot of what I'm saying is a really radical message of power, and communities having power over their local environment. Communities having power to keep logging companies out, to keep big dams out, or to at least be a part of the process, the decision-making process that decides what what kinds of development, what kinds of infrastructure, what kinds of extraction, you know, giving them power to participate in those conversations and, to the extent possible, make a lot of those choices, because they're going to make choices that are pretty conservative in terms of wanting to keep the environment stable and sustainable. And so, you know, in conclusion, I also want to say that I think if I take the message one step larger when I listen to the different projects and the different organizations that are participating in our group, I realize that I think a lot of us were looking for ways, you know, for communities to make really positive changes. And for some people, you know, like I said, communities are heterogeneous. So in some communities, biodiversity is really going to motivate some people to be involved in their community and to make it a better place. And when I look at all these other wonderful projects people are doing, like you know, education projects, that's what motivates some people. They want to give their communities access to knowledge or better processes of gaining knowledge and having education, or like looking at how the role football can play, right, for bringing a community together. And so individuals and communities get inspired by different things and they want to participate in different things. And that's one thing that this group is making me think about is, you know, I say when we walk into a community, there's a conservationist in every community. Right? Well, there's also a public health person. There's also a football person. And a lot of, I think, what we're doing is we're trying to provide opportunities for people, you know, bringing in resources from outside and support from outside to communities which have not traditionally had a lot of access to resources or are not getting a lot of support, either from other NGOs or in many cases, you know, from their own governments who are not necessarily wanting to give lots of power out to the small communities. And so that's kind of my final message is I think about how, in a way, we're all working together on all these different, you know, what we call sectors, but it's really trying to give people the tools and opportunities in their own communities to make them better places, right? We're trying to network in all these different ways across the globe, right, across a country or across a continent. And I've just been really inspired by everyone's stories and just really, you know, sad that I can't participate in person as much. But thank you for giving me this chance to talk today. Have a good one. Bye-bye.
Yeah, so that's Terry. I wonder before Adrian, before you pick it up, if all of us take a moment to think of a question and pop it in the chat for Terry. I mean, for example, when she was speaking, she mentioned that when people do take ownership of their own, looking after their own biodiversity, and particularly when others realize that and they somehow invest in that by supporting them in some way or another, then she mentioned she's quite amazed at what flows. So my question is, what flows when people do realize that there's huge value in giving local communities the responsibility to look after their own biodiversity? So have a think about what inspired you, and any question that might help Terry think about her endeavor, and pop it in the chat. Be great. I'm sorry, I tried raising the volume, everybody. I hope you could hear it, but it wouldn't go louder at my end.
I'll read the questions just, okay. It's already translating, but how can nonprofits like yours and One Earth Conservation that are already engaged in community conservation collaborate to spread the word about the power of this kind of work? If we could see a community as a non-standalone phenomena, how to cope with the specific needs of power related to some contexts where we cannot find space for power with? When the value of giving local communities the autonomy support to look after their biodiversity, what flows? How could you package this value as a powerful message to inspire others to take action? Um trabalho muito necessário, em alguma medida é complexo e convida para discussões relacionadas com políticas públicas. Quais são os desafios entre os níveis abstrato e concreto que têm se relevado ao longo do processo? What means people should understand? This could be tricky in some contexts.
And sorry, Marley's question is, it's a work or job that's very necessary, and in a certain way it's complex, and it invites toward discussions related to public policies.
Quais são os desafios e oportunidades culturais que podem
What are the
apoiar a
challenges
construção de
between the abstract and concrete levels that have revealed themselves along the process? And another question by Michele, what are the challenges and cultural opportunities that can support the construction of a safety and support environment between the participants of different organizations?
positivamente la relación humano, naturaleza y ambiente? Cuando se transfiere el valor a las comunidades de apoyar autónomamente su propia diversidad que surge, ¿cómo pueden convertir ese valor en un poderoso mensaje que inspire a otros a actuar? Wow, great. If you still have any messages or questions, please pop up in the chat. I'm also gonna invite Adrian to start getting ready and prepared so you can have, are you gonna present anything, Adrian, or would you like to talk?
Well, I could present something, though Terry has said almost everything. So I will try to say more of the things on the ground, on the field, since I'm always on the field. So I will like try to deviate a little bit and go down to the field. Since she has said almost everything, we are working together. We have the same ideologies. So I will try now to go deep into the field and like try to explain some few things.
Yeah, that would be wonderful. Considering your first person story, like your personal stories, how you connect and how you're connected to your cause and project and everything that is all related. Even though it's all the same organization, we have individuals and organizations who are happening in each country, right?
Exactly.
So thank you, everyone. So Adrian, if you would like to start.
Okay, so can I share my screen?
Yes, I think so. Can you check? Emma?
Okay.
Yes, we can see.
Okay. Hi, everyone. So I'll be talking about projects with the Baka people. Now, like Terry explained, we have about 3 different projects with the Baka people. We have one in the east in which the communities, they are hoping for our organization to help them manage their community forests. They have tenure already, so they're hoping for us to come and enter and help them to manage it. Second, we have another group of villages. Now, they have been denied access to their forest. So they are hoping that we could help them regain that level of opportunities to enter back into their forest. Because now I'll share a little bit of experience that I had with a particular village the first time, and the reason why I felt so close to this particular project. We went to one project in the south of Cameroon, one Baka village. Now the chief told me that now they don't live long anymore. Why? Because they have been removed from their roots. They have been removed from the forest. Now, they've been exposed to I'll call it in quotes, civilization, in which that's not what they are used to. So they want to go back to the forest. They want to go back to whatever they have been doing before that gave them the longevity of their lives and everything. So that's why our organization, in relation with Perry, or in partnership with Perry, brought up this whole idea of the Baka monitoring program. So just a brief understanding of our organization. So now we are a community conservation organization with a mission to build, sustain, and enhance the interactions of people, lands, and also wildlife for the good of all. Now, all our projects, of course, are community driven. Now we prefer the communities to come to us with their ideas, to come to us that they need to do this. So we use a community approach, right? A person-centered approach to indigenous wildlife monitoring, community forestry, and landscape restoration. So our wildest dream is to have communities lead conservation. So we don't want to go around forcing people to do what they don't want to do. We want the communities to lead their own conservation, because we believe that if they are ready and willing, of course, conservation will be sustainable without any external influence. So now the whole idea now of our Baka monitoring program is just because we have about 0.4% of the entire population of Cameroon. They're made up of indigenous people, the Baka Pygmies. And now these people are found in the southeast of Cameroon. But then they are being marginalized to a level that they don't have access anymore to the forest. They cannot go to the forest again to collect herbs, wildlife, nothing. So they are being stopped from going to the forest. Reason being that they are destroying the forest. But then they feel that they are the custodians of the forest. They have the right to the forest. But why are they being denied that access to their forest? That's why now they approached us. They came to us that they need us to help them to regain that access back into their forest. Now, because their forests are slowly going off, we have increased logging and mining industries, illegal wildlife crimes. So if we don't try to come up with a whole project, help them manage this, I can call it crisis in terms of biodiversity. So they needed something to hold on to that will still give them access back to their forests. So this whole idea of community-led wildlife monitoring, this is what we are trying to put back into the community. Now, because we fully know that, of course, forest is like life to the Baka people. They do everything with the forest. It's a sort of livelihood. They live in the forest. They can stay for months, weeks, even years, only inside the forest without coming out. So why are you trying to remove them out of the forest? Now, this project will give them the opportunity to lead their own wildlife initiatives. And now it's just all about combining their knowledge about the forest with high-tech digital tools. And the whole objective is just to give these communities to lead their own monitoring initiatives to protect their forests and also support their ability to make decisions for their community. Now, this is how we are going about. The first that we have started with is the consent. Of course, we have to present ourselves to the community. Are they really? Because the chief can come to you that, yeah, we want to protect our forests, we want to work with you, but is the entire community ready to participate in that project? Because we want all our projects, like I said before, it's community driven. Everybody has to be okay with it, because we don't force them. If they don't want it, okay, we'll go away. But if you want to work with us, we will work with you. So now we had to get their consent first. Then secondly, we have to train community members in the use of digital tools such as the GPS, the compass, and also smartphones, which have been integrated with the Sapele software used to collect wildlife data. Now, this data refers to all information which is important to the cultures of the Baka. Now, I would like to say that a lot of people don't know how important the forest is to the Baka people. They don't know the kind of plants. For example, the Moabi tree is very important to their culture. There are a lot of things. They eat the fruits, right? Then they make oil from the fruits. They still use the barks of the trees to make a lot of things. And now people don't know about all these things about the Baka people. But with the help of these projects, if all this information are collected, it can go a long way to fight for their rights, or also to bring people together, like to see how we can help them to have access back to their forest. Now, we did like a test, all this, like the two images, you can see like a smartphone, like we are trying to see how we can go about it. This was just a test, right? So this was not the real project, it's just like a test to see how we can go about it, to show the community what we are planning to do, if they are okay with it. Of course, the community was very okay with it. You can see the consultation meetings that we had with the communities. We talked to them, we explained to them what we are hoping to help them do, and they were very okay, they were very happy with it. But then they said one thing that I still remember to now, that if for any reason we have any link with the government, they will immediately pull out from the project. Now, this means that now there is that gap now between the government and the community, because the communities believe that the government is trying to stop them from going to the forest. They are like brutalizing them, in quotes, because now the communities claim that some eco guards, no matter what they are doing in the forest, even farming, they don't just want to see them in the forest. But that's impossible for indigenous people, because that's their life. The forest is their life, everything. So you cannot stop them from going to the forest. So now they want to work with organizations who are not linked to the government, because they want to manage their own resources themselves. So that's the whole idea about this community monitor or community-led monitoring. On the other side, we have another community that already have tenure for their forest. They have a community forest. Now they are inviting us to come and assist them in managing that forest. Now, the first process, or the first part that we did, we went into the community. We had to do a participatory mapping with them to know exactly what is where, who is doing what, who is doing, or who is using which piece of, or which part of the community forest, because the village is found in the community forest. So we had to know who is doing what at what particular time in the community forest. So the first stages, we've had the consent first. Now we've also had like the participatory map, what's happening in the community forest. So the last part of this whole project is the education and training program. Now we are running a program in which we are like educating the Baka children who have at least a certificate, like an advanced level in terms of the Cameroon education, to send them to the university. Now, this is just like providing them funds that they need to access education. Now, it's just a means to empower them, because since they are sensitive and very marginalized, it's very important to like empower them so that they can come back and stand and speak for themselves. Because I think my experience with them is that they are very shy. The Bakabu, they are very shy. And now it's just all about the whole idea that they are not really recognized. But educating them is empowering them, that they will come back and stand, and they can also pull the hands of their brothers and sisters in the different villages. So this program, at the moment, we already have two, like the picture you can see. We have two Baka children in the university here in Yaoundé. So we are trying to send them to the university so that they can get education and be able to stand for their rights. Okay, now, so when we talk about this Baka monitoring network, it's not just all about education. It's not just all about community-led wildlife monitoring. It's not just all about helping communities to manage their forests. It's all about raising awareness of the importance to protect the rights of indigenous people. Now, I think it's a privilege that we still have the opportunity to see these guys. Now, according to history, those are the first occupants of Cameroon. They're the first people that ever lived in my country, Cameroon. So this is an opportunity. Now they own that land. Now, even though our forestry law in Cameroon says that all land is being owned by the government, reason why most of the forestry administration, they stop everybody from going to the forest. But these guys need protection. They need to really be protected. They need everybody to bring hands on deck to fight for their rights. Now, at the moment, in order to start our field work, like in the actual collection of our data with the community people, we are still trying to raise funds, and so that the project can be sustainable. At the moment, we are planning for a 5-year project, which is, of course, it can be renewed in time to come. But then, and also, I would like to say a big thank you to Terry. Of course, she has been very instrumental in our projects. Now, the other part that she was talking about, protecting chimpanzees, that's our other project site. Maybe when we have more time, I can explain more about that. But then my focus now is on the Baka people. So that's the real reason I would like to talk more about that. So now I think they are it's vital for us to come together to see how Baka people can be recognized, not only in the aspects of the forest, but also so that they should be integrated back to the society. Even now, if you ask them, they will prefer to live in the forest, but they have to be integrated because they feel that sense of marginalization. That's why they always want to go back into the forest, because they are free. Now, the forest it's like a supermarket to them. They have everything. They are free in the forest. Nobody tells them what to do. But immediately they come out of the forest, they have been marginalized. They feel like they are not wanted. That's why we have to integrate them. That we have to share peace, and we have to continue helping them and boost their morals in everything that they do. So this is just like a glimpse of what we are trying to do. So we are still trying to raise funds to carry out this project successfully, and we are hoping that we can start going to the field before the end of this year. Yeah, to start up the activities. So that's just a very short everything about our projects. I hope it was interesting to everyone.
Thank you, Adrian. Yes, always interesting. And for me, especially, it's always so important to hear the experiences everyone is actually having with people and communities in the grassroots level, because this is an awareness, since we're taking also a project with indigenous people in Brazil, how much it's important to respect and understand from different perspectives. So I really appreciate the way you brought the way that you guys go to the communities, ask and it start the whole relationship in this content in a different country. So thank you so much. I would like to open to see if someone would like to bring any questions, or if we could come for the group session, for the group coaching group.
Yeah.
Yes, Robert.
I'd like to make a comment. Adrian, we've connected in the participatory video stream, and when you've shown videos of what you're doing with your communities, it's just very inspiring. But I had a bit of a tear in my eye actually when you explained that their lives are shortened because they're actually taken away from their home. It's just so sad. Yeah. So it's just a huge round of applause for you and Terry and everyone you're working with. It's if everyone can come next week, you'll get to see all the participatory videos. And there was one where Adrian went into the Baka community, and if I've got it right, Adrian, you'd spent some time working with an interpreter to actually form an agreement that you would work together. And when the agreement was forged, they spontaneously burst into song. This chap grabbed a plastic thing and started playing drums, and everybody started dancing and singing. It was just quite an amazing, just spontaneous, just burst of life. It was amazing. And yeah. So thank you, Adrian.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. So I wonder, unless anyone wants to say something, let's take some time to think of some questions for Adrian and others that he's working with.
Oi, Adrian, tudo bem?
Hi, Adrian. How are you? I'd like to show appreciation for your work.
de conexão
It's a work
profunda com
that has a deep connection with what's necessary to be done
para a comunidade dos Bacas.
for the Baca community. And
Eu fiquei
it's
muito impressionado
work that I was very well impressed with
não só reconhecer as
the quality of not only acknowledging the needs of the community, but also bringing ways
trabalhar
in which they can work
fortalecer
among themselves so that they can become stronger. And I even wrote on the chat, I put a link of Sapelli, which seems very interesting to me because it works with the idea of having this community strengthening process. And it was done in London. I just saw that on the website. It's open source initiative. So I thought this was amazing, the possibility of having a connection and strengthening using technology. So much appreciation to you in how you've been conducting your work.
Thank you.
Gail wants to talk.
I think
Ceci.
Ceci was first, yeah.
Hola, en realidad sería yo, Tania.
Tanya wants to say something.
Adrian, gracias por la inspiración.
Adrian, thank you for the inspiration and to show that communities are able to do great things when they get organized. That's vital. Independently, if it is intervenience of a state or corruption, the most important thing is the trust that can be built among the individuals in communities. And that remembers me what happens in Mexico with the autonomous communities that have decided to take off or to take out the government or public institutions to work on their own. And that has worked. And exactly those communities, when there have been attempts of huge, big projects that threaten the territories, or in those places where forest is conserved at its best, is where indigenous communities are living, and why we can ask ourselves. We have seen that those communities that face those big projects are the ones able to make them aside their territories. Projects that only want to take material profit from the territories without taking into account the communities. So that's very powerful and big recognition to you.
Thank you very much.
And I just wanted to say that, you know, we do very similar work and we face very similar challenges. You know, one of our projects, the one in Honduras, there's a lot of illegal logging, drug trafficking, assassination attempts. The actually powers that be in the indigenous community, some of them are corrupt and they are trying to keep the community conservation people out of certain parts of the forest. So it would be really great to share our experiences and how we dealt with these issues, because we may get ideas from each other. So definitely think, yeah, not just One Earth, but there might be other wildlife conservation organizations that you can learn from, or they could learn from you. So just want to put that out there.
Okay. If I could say something, like Robert said, we are working with like really fractured relationships, like broken. It's broken. between the communities and the government is broken. So that's why it puts a lot of, I can say, pressure on us, like external organizations coming into the community to work with them. We have to be very careful. You have to be careful what you say, because now they take you for what you say. Immediately you say something that doesn't go with them, that's all. They are not working with you anymore. Once you try to give them any reason to doubt your presence into their community, that's all. You've lost their trust. And once you lose their trust one time, that's all. You can never regain it anymore. That's why it's very difficult for the government to gain back the trust of the community, because they have already given their lands to these exploitation companies. And now these guys are busy destroying their biodiversity, everything. So that trust is very difficult to heal, but then it can always be arranged in one way or the other. That's why we are coming as an organization to try to fill that gap between the community and the government. So that's what we are hoping to do. And I'm hoping that as the project goes on, we may have opportunities to come and present the progress of the projects with you guys. It'll be very important.
Yes, it will be wonderful. I make an aspiration to see all those projects here, like Gail was saying, community conservation, to be working together. And also with urban regenerators, they have so many beautiful things happening at the same thing. And maybe there is a different wisdom that can emerge. I'm just starting with the program in Brazil, but I'm hoping to learn a lot with you, Adrian, with all the organizations who are here as well. I'm going to take the time to read a couple of the messages that you're having as a question, just to make sure like you can have it if it's not in English. Lina is saying, I want to thank you, Adrian, for your work. It's really important to achieve the empowerment of the community and at the same time, the connection of society with local nature. Mateus is saying, thank you. Oh, he's coming this time, but Robert, I get a sense you are dealing with some of the most fractured relationships. What are you learning about how to cultivate the deep human connection required to do this work? I imagine heal the human relationship and everything else begins flowing. What starts flowing? What it would be possible to change the power relationships in the territory? Is there a possibility to create a community-led initiative so strong that the conservation could be done properly? É muito intenso.
Marcelo says it's very intense when the power becomes a liberty by hands of the communities themselves. How to note when this liberation becomes toxic in the community itself?
So those are a couple of gifts. Don't need to answer, but take it to reflect. And also we have questions that were sent as gift to Terry, from what I understood is also for you, right? It's for all the whole community conservation. So thank you so much, Adrian. Thank you everybody for giving those gifts. And also if you have any insights after, please add in the chat. Yes, Robert, would you like to add something?
So I just quickly wanted to ask Adrian, are you coming next week when we're doing the final session in this series?
Okay, yeah, I think I'll make it because I had to go to the field on the 5th, but then I decided to push it forward so that I should attend the final celebration before going. So of course I'll be there.
Brilliant.
Yay! Okay, there is another thing that Sassy is saying. Silvia, felicidades por el proyecto. Los Vacas son un orgullo de resistencia, conocimiento y fortaleza.
Congratulations for your work. The Vaca people are an example of resilience. A very recommended book about these subjects we are talking about is Ismael of Daniel Kin.
All right, so just final words, Adrian, after all this presentation.
Okay, so I think I feel very happy that people are actually interested or see what we do, like, because you can do the work, but if you don't get that acknowledgement from people, okay, yeah, what you're doing is actually interesting. it like somehow you're just like you're there, but then it encouraged like I'm very like motivated right now to do more, to push forward, right? So it sounds very interesting that people actually admire what you do. And now for me, like I always say in the participatory video sessions that whenever I go to these communities, I forget all my problems. Why? Because working there makes me really happy. So now we just have to do more, and we have to learn how to respect the rights of indigenous people. Very important.
Beautiful.
Thank you so much, Adrian. If you would like to send a lot of messages and words for cheering you and cheering, motivating all of us, because all of us is actually going to very tough time, but we know that our heart purpose and the humanity that we carry inside of ourselves doesn't allow us to see suffering and all this, not to see justice and basic rights and human rights being respected. But I'm so happy you're being here with us and bringing the Baka people, and not just that, but the whole community conservation, because we know it's being made and part of many different countries, but you here representing this part of the project. So thank you so much. Thank you to everyone here, because if we could support each other to go through all those challenges that we know we faced every day in our main project and the challenges that we are having, by having this time to release and being together with this cohort and this community, to have the opportunity to breathe and release, and also to feel supported by each other and keep on going in beautiful project as all of us are doing at this moment. So thank you, Adrian, for giving this example and wonderful message. We're gonna have a couple of minutes of break, and right after Helen, it's gonna be with you. And then we're gonna have, is it okay to have 7 minutes break so we can come back at the time in your country, 40 minutes? Is that okay? Is it okay? So in 7 minutes, we'll be back. We're gonna have just 7 minutes break, and then we'll see you in a few minutes, 7 minutes. Thank you. Hi, everyone. I know the break, it was very fast. But please, if you're back, if you could open your camera for a little while so we can make sure, or at least give me a sign. Thank you, Gail. Thank you, Maritza. So we can see that everybody's coming, and then we can start with Helen. Lynn is here. Good, Lina. I think Adrian's also here. Ceci, Antonia, are you there? Felipe. Adrian's also there. Yes, thank you. Yes. So ladies are all here too. Mateus is also here. Felipe, I think it's also coming. So yes, so we have most of the people here. Some of them are with the closed cameras, but if you could, yes, if you could leave your cameras open, it's always good to see all of you. Good to see you, Mateus. Yes, Sylvia is here as well. So yes, Helen, it's with you.
Okay, thanks. I'm going to try sharing my screen, but my computer actually broke. The screen broke on the way back from Angola. So if it is too troublesome, then I'll just talk.
That's okay.
Okay. Yeah, sorry, just 1 second. Okay, can you see it okay?
Yep.
All right. Is the bottom of the screen cut out?
Yes.
Okay, sorry about that. If it gets annoying, tell me.
Yeah, no, it's all clear. Looks great.
But it's
Oh,
all
it is?
clear. Yes, it's all clear now. Yes.
Oh, okay, great. Well, thank you for having me. Our project, I was just talking about Angola, the One Pencil Project, which is our nonprofit, does work in South America, Southern Africa, and in the United States. But for the scope of this project, I really only focus on the work that we do in South America. We mostly focus on education and community development, school development. We primarily started working with children, primary school kids, so kindergarten through 8th grade, but we now work with kids in secondary school and also have scholarship programs. So the scholarship program is something that I've talked about before in in different meetings with you guys, and I'm just going to talk a little bit about that today and sort of some of the things we've been doing there. We have expanded the scholarship programs to the United States, and we also are doing them in Southern Africa now, but I'm just going to stick with the Latin American chapter. Just to give you guys a little bit of a background on who the Tsimane are, the Tsimane Scholarship Program, they're classified as forager. They classify themselves as forager horticulturalists. They live in the Amazonian River basin of Bolivia. So the river that they live on, the Maniqui, is a tributary to the Amazon River. There are about 90 Tsimane villages that we work with. That's not all of the Tsimane people. Those are just the people that we work with. So about 16,000 people, but including, I guess, some of the other communities, we're probably actually getting closer to 20,000 people now. So they have dealt with rapid market integration. They did have subsistence lifestyles, but because of ranching and mineral extraction and deforestation, there are fewer and fewer animals. And so because of that, and also settlements, people have started integrating or working with the market economy more and more. Some Tsimane villages now do a mix where they are going to school. They have parts of their family are doing wage labor, but they still have gardens where they grow maize and yucca and platano. So this is, just to give everybody an idea, this is actually where the Tsimane territory lies. And then this is the Maniqui River. San Borja is the largest market town, the closest market town to the Tsimane communities. So this is just some of the names on here, just some of the Tsimane communities that we work with. So in terms of background, or sort of what the impetus was for this nonprofit, I am a professor at Arizona State University. I started working with the Tsimane as an undergrad, actually, and as an undergrad in biology and anthropology. And I worked on a research project called the Tsimane Health and Life History Project, which that project started in 2003. And when I was an undergrad, I started working on that project in 2005. It's now the longest longitudinal research project with an indigenous population in the world. It's written up in New York Times all the time. There's a lot of research that's been done on heart health. The project is a biomedical research project. And so for many years, they were collecting enormous amounts of data with the Tsimane people. This is not uncommon for scientific-based research, or I mean, any investigative research that's done outside of an industrialized population. And then compensation in most places is generally given based on like what a daily wage looks like, so some portion, how many hours you've worked, people will compensate individuals or their families for doing interviews, or providing biological samples, something along those lines. The project that I worked for wanted to take it a step further. At the time, the Tsimane weren't recognized by the Bolivian government. They didn't have the right to vote. They didn't have access to healthcare. So since 2005, the Tsimane Health and Life History Project, through funding from mostly US organizations, some European, but the National Science Foundation, the National Institute of Health, now provide healthcare to every Tsimane person. So it's 16,000, 20,000 individuals have healthcare through the Tsimane project. And that includes emergency surgeries, things along those lines, cleft palates. And so the big concern with this project was, well, what happens if funding runs out? People in these communities are we're creating a system where individuals are dependent on healthcare or on support from this project that is based on grant money, and what will happen when we leave. And so my research, even though I work in this area, I'm particularly interested in education and child development and child health. And so I started working with the Tsimane Gran Consejo, their governing body, and with community members and asking them, this is the research that we've done, or that this project has done. I'm just one small part of this larger project. And what do you want to do with this, and how can we use this to help you, and sort of create a to create some sort of system where we are supporting you in your future, the goals for your future, trying to create some responsiveness to the causes of inequality that we were seeing happening, that the Tsimane were talking about, trying to create really authentic partnering with them, so that moving forward in 15, 20, 30 years, there was an organization, there was something that would be continuing to support the Tsimane, regardless of grant funding or not, in their own goals, and showing them we had a commitment to the future. So one of the biggest things was that the Tsimane said they want to be self-sufficient in their representation. They want to be able to protect their lands, because they are dealing with very serious issues right now with, like I said, mineral extraction, gold, and then also deforestation. And so I, at the time, was providing school supplies to the primary schools. We institutionalized that into a nonprofit. And then we said, let's take that a step further. And we started working with universities in Bolivia to start putting through the first generation of college or advanced educated Tsimane people who would go to school and then come back to their villages and work in medicine or public health, land rights. We have a land right lawyer as well. And so we started the Tsimane Scholarship Fund. We now have, we're in our third year of that. So we have a number of students, boys and girls, that are going to school in a town that's about 10 hours away from where they've grown up. So it's been a big adjustment. So we also provide housing for them so that they can work with and stay in a community with individuals who speak their own language and have shared cultural history. And then in collaboration with the Tsimane Health and Life History Project, the research project, these students also work anytime there is an individual who's sick or needs to have surgery or has to go to a hospital. They come to this city, and we've provided housing in the back for patients so families can stay there. And then these students who are now becoming leaders in their community help with translations and help with dealing with government agencies, because these kids are living in the city and understand how to navigate. And so they're able to help families when their family members are in the hospital. And so that's what we've been doing so far. The boy in the suit, that's Jose Sarabia. He's actually our law student. He's almost finished. And so his focus has been on land rights and land conservation. And he is a very outspoken, I have a feeling he'll end up like having a very, like he's gonna be really, really good at what he does. So what we're striving to change is just to be, again, asking the Tsimane sort of what was bothering them. These were the things that they told us. There's, they're dealing with droughts now and flooding. That's increased food insecurity, deforestation, and then ranchers and other colonists have encroached on their land, and they wanted to represent themselves. And so the way that we thought the best way forward through communications with the Tsimane was to help give people access to higher education. And so we're trying to increase the number of kids who are finishing secondary school. We provide school supplies to every student at the beginning of every single year, and then also supporting kids when they want to go to college. Like I said, we've been trying to onboard and help with kids when they are in university, to make sure that the transition to the university isn't too difficult, to make sure that their experience in school is supportive, that they have tutors, that they feel comfortable coming forward if they feel like there's discrimination or a situation that is untenable either in their living situation or in their educational situation. So that's what we've been doing so far. Those are our goals, and it's been really it's been a really positive experience doing this. It's wonderful to work with people, find out how you can commit yourself to the future of the communities that you work with, and let other individuals take the lead and just follow by example. We have certainly had a number of challenges. Getting the Bolivian government to support us and then follow through on the support has been hard. Sometimes making sure that we are getting the financial support. We would like to expand our projects and take this further in every place that we work, but the fear is that we will overpromise and underdeliver, and so we are limited sometimes in our scope, even though I think that we have the capacity to do more, because financially we don't want to overextend ourselves. But that's basically what we've been doing so far, and yeah, and so thank you guys again for having us and supporting us on the journey as we work through all of the kinks of the One Pencil project and the scholarship funds. Thank you.
Yeah, wow, it's every time I hear you speak about your work, Helen, it just inspires me. I didn't realize that it was such a longitudinal study. I mean, the lessons that have been learned across the whole program must be enormous.
Yeah, they are. I mean, it's one of the things that I think we don't always, I don't know, I'm sure everybody in this group thinks about it, but I don't know if academics always do, or scientists, or people just in everyday life. But so much of what we know about public health and cancer research, aging, child development, I mean, baselines for that were drawn from a lot of populations in Europe and Canada and the United States, but really the bulk of what we know has come from a larger population of individuals throughout the world, right? And there has not historically, I mean, even in the US, to be honest, like, anytime, but there's not historically been a very big commitment or interest into supporting the communities in which we learn so much from and draw so much from, and that has to change. So that was one of the reasons that we started this organization.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, so maybe I can make a comment before others kind of open up and ask questions. I mean, there's a really strong theme across all of the work that the 11 or so organisations involved in this project are dealing with, and that's the impact of well, it's more to do with the intersection between sort of cultural Indigenous communities and civilization, in quote, and both the up and down side of that, and so we hear stories about the impact of capitalist and consumption, the capitalist endeavours, where there's just all that exploitation and consumption and those kind of things. But also there's the upside, when you're training lawyers and healthcare professionals, and so there's the value of the institution that's gradually weaving itself together with more traditional approaches to life, embedded within an ecosystem. And so that's the big question I've got. How can we weave this tapestry together so that the best of what is there in all camps becomes part of the solution? And I can kind of see that, that because you've been working with this community for such a long time, educating young people to bring back the best of Western civilization and integrating it into a local community. And so that's where my curiosity is piqued. What's emerging as a result of weaving together best practices from such diverse contexts and histories,
Yeah, do you want me to answer that or?
Yeah, I mean, maybe
that
you can just kind of a
for
brief
thought?
answer, and then we can open up to others to ask questions, because I think there's something powerful there.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even know if what you know, I think what we're doing is a drop in the bucket, but I think it's a start, and I think that I think really if we're thinking about supporting communities that we work with, you know, it's just helping to. I think the best way I know how to help is to help facilitate access to tools that allow these communities, allow communities to live life exactly as they want to, but have the tools in order to actively and successfully communicate that and fight for that against larger institutionalized organizations.
Yeah, right.
Like governments and yeah.
So voice is really important.
And yeah, I think so.
Yeah, wonderful.
Thank you.
I loved actually, Helen, because I think most of the things you've done it makes so much sense to me. And it's so beautiful to hear from a researcher all the different aspects, because this is one of my big fights with the academy and all the research way of doing things, when we consider everybody as labs and we don't consider them as human beings. And this is one of the hardest things since the beginning of this program. I told Robert, is like, please don't tell me this is not like that, you know, like, it's like, we know it is like that most of the spaces, but not here, because what we wanted to do is totally different and become a different way of making all this to combine and get the best efforts. And what we are doing in our small little program, which is just starting, has so much of what you're doing for a long time, having the best of everything. So we're supporting one of them, like Marie, who's being part of the participatory video. She's one of the first indigenous she's taking law school at this time. She's just finishing very strongly the first year. But this is all, there's so many things that is all combined, so many challenges at once, because I can hear you now when you already have a lot of people already graduated, young people already engaging themselves, and we're just starting. So I can see a lot of the hope and the signs and a lot of the outcomes you're already having that inspired me so much to do something that is combining with good values and respect of the people, but at the same time taking the advantage of getting the science to support all those things. So thank you so much for bringing this story, which is so powerful and really touched me from a different space. Thank you so much.
Oh, yeah, thank you.
Go, Gail.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I relate to how your organization really partners with the communities you're working with, and like we do the same thing, and we are there for the long term. Like we're committed to being there as long as we need to be and have the resources to be there. And unfortunately, there's no quick way to do it. You know, that's what is needed to really get to know the people, to work with them through any conflicts that come up, and definitely get to know what they want, their needs and wants, and to, you know, guide them, not tell them what to do, but guide them to get to where they want to be. So so I applaud you for that, and you know, we're trying to do the same thing.
Well, thank you. Yeah, it's nice to know there's other, you know, we're all sort of working towards similar goals in slightly different ways.
Olá, Helen, parabéns, gratidão pela...
Hi, Helen, congratulations, and thank you for your talk. I was curious with the amount of meritocracy, because meritocracy is always embedded in our society as a reason for individual success. And many times my curiosity is how this meritocracy creates an impact on this specific community where you work.
Yeah. Yeah, sorry, I'm sorry, I saw that. So, so when you're asking that question, do you mean sort of like how the governing body of the Tsimane has affected it, or how the government?
The Tsimane.
The Tsimane. Oh, okay. So the governing body of the Tsimane has been really supportive of this. I've been working with them, like I said, I've been working with the Tsimane since 2005. So we've seen a lot of changes in how the Tsimane have, well, first off, like how much power the Gran Consejo actually had in the region where it exists. I mean, when we first started working there, again, there was no one had a right to vote. They had no carnets. They weren't recognized as citizens of Bolivia. That changed when Evo Morales was elected president. And there was some ups and downs during during the terms of his presidency as well. But as far as like how they operate with it, the governing body was almost just was elected by community members once every few years, and they just sort of gave recommendations. But as the Tsimane have gained independence and status and power, the governing body of the Tsimane has actually become more pervasive and taken more maybe control over like how the Tsimane are moving forward. And so, in terms of with our organization, what we really hoped to do is to have them support us in what we're doing. And we've, and that's something that's been very challenging as well. We originally started this program and told the Gran Consejo, you pick all of the students that go to college, but then it was a lot of kids that were like their nephew or their son or their daughter that were going to college, and maybe not the kids that were going to do the best in college. So then we had to really carefully navigate that system with the universities and allow the universities to make those selections. So we really are dealing with a bunch of these different, little governing bodies that have enormous power in different places, and trying to get everybody on board to work together so that the outcome is the most productive, because the one thing we just don't want to do is fail. I don't actually know, Marcel, if I answered your question, but if I didn't, please let me know.
Thanks, Helen. Yeah, you answered that. Thanks.
Okay, all right. Yeah.
I'm reading Robert's question. Helen, I get a sense that through the endeavors of One Pencil that you're learning something important about how to weave together the best of our various heritages, Western and Indigenous. I'm curious, what are the most important catalysts for integration, and what emerges as a consequence? How are these lessons being generalized? This is a gift, because this is very deep. That would take like the whole session to learn, and I'm very inspired by that question. So not easy to come along and say, please answer the question. But this time, hold on for a little second.
Okay, no, thank you for the question. Yeah, it's really worth thinking about.
Yeah.
Gail, you must have a good question. You've always got good questions.
You're putting me on the spot. Yeah, a question I have, because I know we deal with this too, is how do you deal with and again, not to be answered right now, but with conflict? I'm sure there's lots of conflict and disagreement within a community about what the goals should be and who should get to do what. Why does this one get to go to college and that one doesn't, and that sort of thing. So and that's a place where community conservation and One Earth Conservation and your group, we could all probably share that kind of experience with each other and how we've dealt with various things. So something to think about.
Thank you. Yeah, it's definitely a big one.
Felicidades por el proyecto. Mi pregunta es cómo el apoyo académico a los jóvenes contribuye a la formación de su identidad personal y si eso fortalece un ambiente socioafectivo. Thank you, Sandra.
Yeah, thank you for that question. Yeah. These are just questions for thought, right? That I'm supposed to take with
Yes.
me? Okay, great. I
Yes.
wanted to make sure. So I was supposed to answer.
But they're really good. We feel like we want to answer all of them. Yes. Is there any aspect indigenous wisdom being sued with the traditional wisdom throughout the journey? Is that being also added into college or any other institution besides the project and the program?
Wait, do you want me to, I keep getting,
Yeah.
do you want me to answer that or just that's for later? Okay,
Yeah,
sorry.
That's for
I'm just-
later.
So these are,
That's for later.
I'm kind of assuming that everyone's just typing a question. So what's what we're doing is we
Yes.
just collate the questions and then everyone, whoever presents can take them away and contemplate
Helen,
what they're drawn to.
por favor, você poderia nos explicar novamente
Mateus is
como ocorre
asking,
a relação
Helen,
com suas
can
universidades?
you please explain again how do you have this access to the universities?
Oh, I'll have to answer that one.
Yeah, that's what I
access to the universities in Bolivia or in the United States?
believe both.
Okay, so in the United States, oh, Bolivia. Okay, great.
Bolivia.
Bolivia.
Yeah, so
In Bolivia.
in Bolivia, what we did was one of my colleagues, the vice president of this organization, his name is Chris von Ruden. He's also worked with the Tsimane since 2005. He went from university to university. We work with some medical doctors and things, so we tried originally going through them. It was it didn't work. So what we ended up doing was looking through all of the universities that seemed to support or were promoting the idea of Indigenous education or bringing in diverse student bodies. And then we went there and we solicited the universities. So through a series of meetings, face-to-face meetings, and then Zoom during COVID, to try to organize sort of a share of space, like you provide the food and we will provide the housing and the, and the tuition and this. So we just tried to come up with find a university that was willing to come up with an agreement with us. And so we found one in Trinidad, Bolivia, which is the capital of the region where the Tsimane live, Beni. So it was basically cold calling.
Legal. Obrigado.
Yeah.
Cool, thanks.
I think there's so many people thinking about the good questions because there's so many good questions that could be sent to you, Helen, that I was thinking here that I would be in silence and send you a couple of more, but I'll send you after in a certain way. And at the same time, Robert, Marcelo is sending, existe entre os que retornam à comunidade
Marcelo is asking,
uma sabedoria indígena como fonte de conhecimento?
Just a sec that I'll translate. Among those who return to the community, is there a denial of an indigenous wisdom as a source of knowledge?
Okay.
That one's mixed.
Food for thought.
Yeah.
Are others composing questions still? I just wanted to check whether others are still trying to write a question in the chat.
I think most of are done for this time, I think, but if it comes, I think it's
Yeah. All right.
It flows.
Maybe, 'cause
Would,
I'm thinking,
would you like to go? We have 15 minutes, Robert. Would you
Yeah.
like to go for our next step? But thank you so much, Helen. Would you like to give your last thoughts, final thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, just thanks again. It's been really a big project for us and a large undertaking, and it's been really nice to have this community of individuals. I know that with our work on 3 continents, like we have also, you know, been in and out, but the times that we've been here have been very appreciative, and like we've been very appreciative, and you guys constantly checking back in, and it's been really nice to work with so many other people who have shared goals, and you know, to work off of each other to try to build more productive programs, honestly.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Helen. I mean, that's actually a really good segue into kind of my quick wind up. I'd like to just say a few words and perhaps a few slides just to set us up for the final session next week. I'm going to drop something in the chat as well. I tentatively did a draft schedule for next week's program, next year's program actually. Let me share a screen and just speak to this, because what I'm hoping is that next week we can actually not only kind of celebrate what we've done this year, particularly by featuring this mini documentary of the participatory videos. Michelle, Marcelo and I met with Soleil last week, and she came online. She was very excited about what the folk in the participatory video stream have produced. And she actually asked, oh, do you want to see a preview? And we resisted and just said, no, we want to share the excitement of seeing it for the first time with everyone else. And she was delighted. She said, you're going to love it. You know, and she said often when she's working with clients like us, the client wants to see it before it's previewed. But so we're all going to preview it together. But I guess for me, the reflection as we're closing out the year is it's been a really interesting journey for all of us. Actually, we've kind of touched base, you know, in intimate ways, as we've each been doing extraordinarily important work, and collectively, you know, we're touching many hundreds, if not into the thousands of people. And and there's a long history of work that's coming into this little forum. And the huge question I've got is about how can we support each other going forward? Because I know through Pro-Social World, we're trying to invite you know, communities like this one and the communities we're a part of to consider 4 or 5 fundamental things. You know, what is the nature of the inner work that has to be done for us to actually regain a sense of shared humanity. And the second one is, and if we were to act in a direction that was going to impact on some of the intractable problems we've got, what would we be doing? Where would we be turning our attention? Which is a strategic thing. And then the other thing that we're invited to ask is, what, if we were to attend to that, how can we actually collaborate in a way that is pro-social? You know, that enhances our capacity to actually collaborate. You know, what are the new forms of governance and the cultural normative environments that enhance our capacity to trust and collaborate in order to make this difference? Because it's huge. The other aspect of it is, how can we approach this with a learning mindset? You know, the whole action learning research agenda. And this has been embedded into our inquiry this year. I mean, this was broadly the design. We went through these phases, you know, the inner work, the strategic context, the pro-social governance, the opportunities and the research. And we complemented with this with participatory video. And certainly, central to this was the distinction between the fundamental needs that have to be met in order to sustain life, the individuals and the collective, and they extend to the need to look after our environment. And that's complemented by the unique values that individuals embody. And values, for our purposes, are not this reified kind of quality. It's the quality intrinsic to a healthy action. Some people really value education or healthcare or looking after the environment or preserving indigenous wisdom or leveraging the strengths of modern civilization. And the big question is, how do we bring into this collective endeavor our own unique strengths and values and weave them together within a strategic context? Because what I've noticed is all conflict shows up at the level of strategy. That we share these most fundamental needs. These are universal. The need for physical well-being, freedom, connection, and meaning, or sovereignty. And once we can get these on the table and they organize the conversation, then conflict seems to disappear. It does in my experience. When we had this conversation, we identified these critical factors that we want to impact, and we've all talked about these, and these change all the time. It's not as if these are the factors. We'll need to ask ourselves this question again next year. What are the factors that we want to respond to if we're going to keep working together next year? And if we turn our attention to that, what would be a preferred and probable future? And it seems as though there's these three areas of interest within this community: environmental conservation, social change, and education. Research is kind of there, but it didn't foreground itself this year. I'm hoping it will next year. And we ask ourselves, okay, once we've got now we've got a sense of future, whether it's us together or within our own organisations, community, how can we implement these principles that have been shown to enhance trust and reciprocity? This is the wisdom of Elinor Ostrom. And we've done our action learning. We heard a little bit more about it today. Things that are happening in Cameroon and Bolivia, and Argentina. It's extraordinary work. And so the big question now is next year. And the questions that I want to leave you with as we part is, what, and I want to pick up this conversation next week. I want to dedicate, Michelle and Marcelo and I have talked about the structure of next week. We want to spend the first while celebrating what we've done this year. Then we want to devote a huge chunk of time to this conversation. Given that these are our interests, environmental conservation, social change, education, and possibly research, what might be possible next year? And we don't want to answer next week. We want to really get the question in the room. And the other thing that's emerging is who would like to work with the core team, that is Michelle, Marcelo, and I, to help lead change in one of these particular areas next year. I know we've received a few messages saying, is there a possibility for apprenticeship from some of the people in our program to be able to learn to actually do this facilitation more directly? And we'd really like to unpack that. But also, who would you like to invite if you're to invite more organisations to join us? I know, Helen, you're working in 3 continents, and initially we tried to restrict the geographical location of our effort to Latin America, but it just couldn't help but bleeding across the global south. And particularly with Terry's work, hence Adrian coming along. And so I'd like to open up a conversation about how can we extend our efforts to reach even further. And kind of behind this has been the question about additional funding. Everyone was good enough to put together brief proposals. And it's taken a long time to organise another meeting with the Templeton World Charity Foundation. And we've got one after the celebration. But also we're having other conversations. So we definitely have not dropped that banner at all. And I'm still really hopeful that we can bring little chunks, reasonable chunks of money to each individual project going into next year. I hoped that we would be able to get it into this year's budget, but things being what they are, it wasn't possible. So this is the tentative schedule for next year. I want to have a conversation with everybody about, do we want to go through the same process? I know that in my work over the last decade or more, that for all of the significant and sustained change that I've seen within established institutions or within the context of bilateral trade arrangements across Southwest Asia, for example, or even in Africa, each of these 4 processes has been essential. I've worked with the governments across the Pacific over the last 3 years to help them coordinate effort in relation to climate change. And if any of these processes, the inner work, so people can become truly self-determining and value-directed within a strategic context and implementing these principles that enhance collaboration and embarking on a learning process, because we don't have the answers yet. If any one of those has been missing, the project hasn't resulted in long-term impact. And so I definitely want to preserve the integrity of those 4 phases. But I want to invite us all to come together. Do we want to do this exactly this way? Some are wanting to actually write a field book together. I've spent a lot of time this year writing up session notes for each one of these phases, and you drop them into Google Translate, and some people have used them. There's interest from the translators, for example, to actually turn these into a really good field book. And if there's things that you're already doing that would work, we could weave that into it. So we could have high quality publications that you can work with. Particularly video was a big feature this year. And we'll see how powerful that was when we view this premiere next week. How do we want to weave that going forward? Do we want to weave together and craft a research agenda next year? What other community work could we do? So take a look at this. I'll drop these slides on our shared Dropbox. I've just put this draft schedule in the chat, so you've got the tentative dates. The project actually closes out in August. So next week, I'd like us to explore what's possible, as well as celebrate what we've done this year. What do you reckon? Okay. And I'm hoping that the full cohort will be there, because across the 11 organisations, there's a lot of people actually. It's often in these little meetings, we don't get a sense of how far the reach is, but we're actually touching the lives of many hundreds of people, individually, but in some way collectively. And my big question is what's the value of us trying to connect at this inter-institutional level or kind of endeavour level? How can we learn to collaborate across such diverse boundaries between education and environmental conservation and social change? We're learning powerful lessons. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. So just as a short message, if you would like to just send a message, or what is your biggest insight or one of the feelings you're leaving this meeting, just write in the chat, and then we can just finish our meeting today with this energy of the feelings, of the learnings, of the insights we had from this last action learning session from our TWCF Journey 2022, and getting ready for next week, December 6th for us. I'm not sure, Adrian, what day is today for you? It's closed.
Okay. today's the 29th, and we are almost close to midnight on the 30th. Almost close to
Wow.
midnight.
I think it's gonna be almost the same time, but it's December 6th next week for
Yeah.
celebration. So thank you so
Yeah.
much for being at this time until this time. Wonderful and beautiful to have your presence together in this team in this journey. And next week we're gonna be together again. So in December 6th, just for Robert, I think it's gonna be December
It's a daylight.
7th. Then we can see everybody here to celebrate and meet everyone who's been in the participatory video and also in the TWCF main journey. In a way we can see the outcomes and insights. So thank you so much everyone for today. Again, the support and assistance, beautiful presentations from all the presenters, bringing the love, passion, and wonderful actions that are being developed by you and your communities. Thank you for sharing your humanity and your hearts together with us, because this is what makes us alive and feel us that we are not alone, and we are all supporting each other in a certain way, and now even closer in a way that we can keep on doing these beautiful projects and making our world actually something that we wanted to see, not just for ourselves, but for many others. So thank you so much for the inspiration, the hope, motivation to keep on doing what we are doing, and let's keep it up, because this is what makes life worth it, and being together and be able to share even more. So feeling the blessings of everything. Thank you so much, and see you next week for celebration and a lot of news. Bye, Gail. Thank you so much. Big
Bye,
words from
pessoal.
Joaquim.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you,
Bye.
Maritza.